What's up, everybody? Thursday, September 22nd. Got a great show for you today. So we have some speculation, or actually, you know what? Based on this story, it's not even speculation at this point. We have some news about the upcoming presidential election, which I find very interesting. I have a lot to say about it. There's a certain Democratic governor who is going to runsies. He's going to run. I also have Donald Trump. One of the persistent claims from the right is that Democrats love indoctrinating children, and the school system is basically to indoctrinate children. Well, Trump decided to tell every child in America to read a book about the rigged election. So, kind of seems like projection, if I don't say so myself. You guys are very clearly trying to brainwash kids as you pretend like it's the left who's doing that. I have an amazing story on books being banned. Yes, the United States of America, a country with a First Amendment. There is quite a bit of book banning going on, and I'll give you the specifics around that. And then I have what I would call like irrefutable evidence that evangelical Christianity is functionally a cult. You're not going to believe the numbers that come out of this. It's interesting polling that we can talk about. And marijuana is on the ballot, and even in deep red states, marijuana is crushing it. It's, this is one of those issues where you want to talk about bipartisan support among the people. It's astounding just how large the numbers are. So before we jump into it, quick little shameless pluggington real quick. Well, actually, first, let me say massive thank you, as always, to the people who are patrons to this show. You guys make the show work. I can't express enough gratitude for how much you guys have done for the show. If you guys remember, we set the Patreon up for Secular Talk. This was all the way back when Adpocalypse hit, and YouTube just overnight ripped the rug out from underneath us and basically cut all funding. And that extended for like a week or so, where we just were making no money at all from the show. And then I set up a Patreon, and all you guys came in and saved the day and donated $2 a month or $5 a month. And, that made it so we went from panic mode to like sigh of relief. So big thank you to all the patrons who are still with the show today. You guys are the best. You mean the world to me. And for everybody else out there, consider becoming a patron also. It helps out the show, and it keeps us, remember, decade of doing the show, I've never once had a conversation with an advertiser, and that is directly because of your guys' support. So thank you to everybody over on Patreon. Thank you so much to everybody who is a Substack member of Crystal Kyle and Friends. You get the newsletter and the show's a day early, the video version of the show, because of the Substack membership. So big thanks to everybody supporting over there. And if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe and click that little bell notification. And if you're not, well, welcome to listening to the show on the podcast apps, which, again, is a pretty new thing for this show. We drop all the full shows on the podcast app. This is not something that we used to do. It's relatively recent. And so big shout out to everybody who just likes listening on the podcast apps and not on YouTube. Every now and then I pop in and listen on the podcast apps because I think I like to check the show for mistakes, and then that allows me to correct stuff moving forward. So anyway, as I get high as balls on Red Bull, for this show, let's go ahead and dive into it. So, California, their governor, Gavin Newsom, is going to run for president. Now, they add the caveat here in the New York Post, if Biden doesn't run. Okay, well, people are saying that's up in the air because Biden said something recently like, I'm committed to running, but will it really happen? That's yet to be seen. He said something to that effect. I think as long as Biden is alive, he's going to run in 2024, but the fact that this is already out there about Newsom means even if Newsom doesn't run in 2024 because Biden runs, he's definitely going to run in 2028. There is no doubt about it whatsoever. So Gavin Newsom is in for a presidential run. The question is exactly when will that presidential run be? But I want to give you some of the specifics here. They say California Governor Gavin Newsom is, quote, undeniably, unequivocally preparing to seek the Democratic presidential nomination in 2024 if President Biden does not run for a second term, and is poised to take on Vice President Kamala Harris, according to a report on Monday. Now, let me say this. You get a little bit of a sense of how the Democratic Party functions based on this story, because how cuckish is that, like, if Biden runs, he's not gonna run because, there's like, I'm next in line type thing going on. Like, oh, I don't want to step on any toes. There are a lot of powerful people that if Biden runs, they'd be pissed off if I ran. So I can't piss off those people, piss off the Democratic establishment, piss off the donors. So, I need to make sure that I handle this in a cordial way. I find that so goofy and silly, and that's such insider politics, because it's like, if you really think your message is the message we need, if you really think your policies are what the country needs, then, like, who cares if the zombie dude is running? Like, throw your hat in the ring, let's go, let's do it. But this is the way the insider game works, and so he's careful, he doesn't want to step on too many toes here. Now, I will say, Kamala Harris, I think, is a horrible candidate. Gavin Newsom, I think, is a bad candidate. But if it came down in a hypothetical scenario, Gavin Newsom versus Kamala Harris, I think Gavin Newsom would win. Even though he's got the whole, like, sleazy used car salesman vibe going on. No disrespect to used car salesman. I was a car salesman back in the day. He's got that whole thing going on, but, shit, a corpse would beat Kamala Harris, because Kamala Harris has literally none of the boxes checked that you need to check in order to become president. Newsom, who recently challenged Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis to a debate over his sending 50 migrants to Martha's Vineyard, plans to make an announcement after the midterm elections once the president relays his intentions, the Wrap reported. Okay, so I don't know how many of you guys caught this story. I considered covering it on the show, but honestly, it didn't make the cut. It really wasn't important enough or interesting enough. But yeah, Gavin Newsom went on Twitter and said he challenged Ron DeSantis to a debate. I think this was in the wake of DeSantis's political stunt sending immigrants to Martha's Vineyard, and DeSantis had some comment like, that guy's got too much gel in his hair, which, facts, but look, I can't really talk because I also load my hair up with gel, and Newsom tried to get pithy and fired back like, I'll bring my gel, you bring your hairspray, and let's debate. Again, he's just trying to get his name in the news, man, just trying to get more name recognition, more fame, build up his national profile so that when he does run, and again, it's not an if, it's a when, that he's in a nice position. Quote, no ifs, ands, or buts, he will run if Biden does not, a leading California fundraiser told the outlet. The governor, who is running for re-election against Republican Brian Dahl in Deep Blue, California, and is expected to win easily, has also been running ads in Texas to taunt Governor Abbott about gun laws in the Lone Star State. But Biden, in an interview on CBS 60 Minutes Sunday, said it was much too early to declare his intentions to seek a second term. Again, but this contradicts previous stuff Biden has said, where he basically said, yes, I'm going to run. So I don't put as much stock in these new comments from Biden as I did in the old ones, because the old ones were crystal clear. And I think the default for an incumbent is that they're going to run unless it's really proven otherwise. Again, the only thing I could see that makes it so he doesn't run is if he dies or if he has some major health event. Outside of that, I think they would prop up his almost lifeless body in order to try to get him across the finish line. But Biden, in an interview on CBS 60 Minutes Sunday, said it was much too early, blah, blah, blah. Quote, look, my intention, as I said to begin with, is that I would run again, the president said, but it's just an intention. But is it a firm decision that I run again? That remains to be seen. So that's exactly what Biden said the other day. Newsom, for the record, has said he has no interest in running for president, but he has, in the past months, been increasing his profile outside of California. Yeah, this whole stupid tap dance of like, I don't have any intention to run. The reason why these guys do that is because if you announce that you are, if you flat out say you're running, then you have all the financial regulation laws kick into place, and you can only raise money in certain ways for your campaign. If you basically know you're running, but you don't say you're running, and you do a tour, you can raise money with less rules around it, and so that's why a lot of these guys say, like, oh, I have no intention of running, as they're clearly planning a run. Last week, he launched billboard campaigns in 7 GOP-led states, offering residents information about abortion in the wake of the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade in June. Now, I will say, I think that's clever. The polls on abortion are overwhelmingly on the Democrat side. The Republicans, the American people view Republicans as extremists on the issue, because they are. The elected Republicans are going gonzo on this issue. And so Newsom's doing trolling. He's like, look, we believe in freedom. Come here, have an abortion. We're a sanctuary state for abortions. By the way, I love the idea of like somebody planning I mean, this doesn't happen, just to be clear. Like somebody like planning to get pregnant just so they can have an abortion. Like, let's travel to California and make a vacation of it. Like, that doesn't happen, but it's just funny thought. Anyway, he also establishes a website, abortion.california.gov, to point out that the procedure is legal and protected in California. Quote, here's my message to any woman seeking abortion care in these anti-freedom states. Come to California. We will defend your constitutional right to make decisions about your own health, Newsom said in a news release Thursday. Quote, the idea that these Republican politicians are seeking to protect life is a total farce. They are seeking to restrict and control their constituents and take away their freedom, it continued. He also sent a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland seeking an investigation into Abbott and DeSantis for transporting migrants to cities outside their states, including the Florida governors flying 50 migrants to Martha's Vineyard. Now, they've also sent immigrants directly to Kamala Harris's house. They've also sent immigrants now directly to Biden's house. It's all a political stunt. This is DeSantis trying to up his profile for a run. DeSantis, who is considered likely to seek the Republican presidential nomination, shrugged off the threat. Quote, so the California governor sent a letter to the Department of Justice saying you need to prosecute Texas and Florida governors. All I can say is, I think his hair gel is interfering with his brain function, DeSantis said in response. Now, witty little line there about the hair gel, but there now are multiple investigations into what DeSantis did. There's a Texas sheriff who's investigating him for what he did, and now you have direct lawsuits coming from the people who were exploited and lied to and sent to Martha's Vineyard. So will there actually be legal ramifications in terms of him being found guilty of one crime or another? I tend to doubt it, but that doesn't mean that what he did was good, and that doesn't mean that what he did wasn't borderline. I mean, some people are calling it like human trafficking and kidnapping and things of that nature. And look, I get where that argument comes from. I mean, this is certainly a political stunt that he had no business doing. And the polls came out on it, by the way. It was 44-44, I think, the country was on the stunt, which is actually better for DeSantis than I thought. But really, the whole idea was to just throw red meat to the base, and that seemed to work. So, but anyway, Newsom's picking a fight with DeSantis because he knows that's my main competition. I mean, I guess you could say Trump is the main competition, but he's under a mountain of investigations and lawsuits, and Lord only knows what's going to happen by 2024 for him. So I think he thinks DeSantis is the main competition and that Trump eventually will peter out. He has also been a big proponent of green initiatives, which has earned him call-outs as a hypocrite. Earlier this month, while he was trashed for wearing a fleece jacket in a seemingly air-conditioned room while urging California residents to save energy amid a historic heat wave, it's not the first time he failed to follow his own rules and recommendations. This is the New York Post editorializing, of course. In November 2020, he notoriously attended a dinner party at the acclaimed Napa Valley restaurant, the French Laundry, after he discouraged households from gathering over the holidays. He later apologized. Newsom's office shot down the 2024 run report, saying the Democratic governor has no plans to mount a presidential bid, and included a Twitter posting with him addressing the possibility. Quote, I've tried to say no way in every way I possibly can, he said in an interview in July. I may need advice and counsel of what's the language to express absolutely no. He's lying. He's full of shit. If Biden doesn't run, he's going to run. I believe whatever sources they have behind the scenes that are close to Newsom that are saying that. And so, look, man, it's an interesting conversation, right? Because we think we know all the national players that were going to run, whether it be Mayor Pete, Kamala Harris, Amy Klobuchar, and they probably will run. Whether, they won't run against Biden if Biden runs, but they will eventually run for president. In the case of Newsom, there are some things that he's done that are bad. Look, I am of the belief that California was far too strict with their COVID rules. The idea that you ban outdoor dining when there was no evidence whatsoever that the outdoor spread was the problem. That's far too authoritarian, in my opinion. There's a number of things I could point to that he did that I don't like. I do think it's fair to call him out for being a hypocrite when he was, shutting down everything, but then you're going to eat at this restaurant. I mean, people are going to get pissed off. It's different rules for elites versus regular people. So I think that's a fair criticism of him. And there's many other fair criticisms of him, too. My biggest one, of course, is that he punted on a direct vote on Medicare for All, a state version, a California single-payer system. This was something that he could have had a vote on, and you could have potentially made California the first state with universal health care, and that could have started a snowball effect, and you could have had like all of the Democratic states eventually doing their own state single-payer healthcare systems. And look, I still think that's the most likely path to get single-payer. It's through the states. Now, I wish that wasn't true. I wish we could do it at the federal level. There's more hope at the state level, but he sort of stabbed the knife in our back and twisted it on that day. And of course, it's because he took a tremendous amount of money from the health insurance companies. So he's a corrupt goon. He's a sleazy politician. He also happens to be the politician who just signed sectoral bargaining, though, as well in California, which is a great thing. Sectoral bargaining. So for those of you who don't know what that is, basically like for fast food places in California, the workers now get to do sectoral bargaining, which is like they're going to be able to negotiate their wages. So you're going to have a minimum wage of about $20 or $22 for fast food workers in California. That's amazing. If we look, sectoral bargaining would be a game changer for workers in this country. And keep it real, you got to give credit where it's due. On that front, he was right to sign that bill, and that bill is going to massively help working people, these fast food workers. So that's a good thing he did. Another good thing he did was the bill to have California make their own insulin. So it's like public pharmaceuticals, because we all know how expensive pharmaceuticals are, and California decided, well, we as a state government can just directly compete with the pharmaceutical companies, charge a much, much, much lower price, and then people will be able to get their insulin, and that'll save lives. And so that's another area where, look, you got to keep it real. You got to give credit where it's due. The facts have to come before any ideology or personal biases, and I despise Gavin Newsom, but on those two things, credit, man. One other thing he probably deserves credit for is that he was one of the first, I think he was the first politician in the U.S. to come out in favor of same-sex marriage. And actually, I think he tried to force the state government to issue same-sex marriage licenses. This was all the way back in like 2003 or 2004 or some shit. He was very early on to this path. So again, credit. In some ways, he's better than a lot of other Democrats, but in other ways, he's a standard corporate Democrat. It's hard for me to call you anything but that when you kill Medicare for all, when you kill single-payer healthcare in California. So he has a mixed record. But what's funny is that the other players in the conversation are so bad that he would probably beat them. He would probably beat Kamala Harris. He would probably beat Mayor Pete. In fact, I'm almost certain he would beat those. I think it's a different question when you start talking about when he does run, whether it's 2024 or 2028. Is it going to be against somebody like John Fetterman? Because I think Fetterman's better. Is it going to be against somebody like Warnock? I think Warnock's probably better. Is it going to be against somebody like Marianne Williamson? I think Marianne Williamson is better. So it depends who you're talking about. But among the corporate Democrats, he's actually probably the biggest threat when he does eventually run, which I know is a crazy thought because you think of him as this goofy, sleazy politician slimeball. But goofy, sleazy politician slimeballs, I mean, that's like Bill Clinton, and Bill Clinton draxed everybody in sight when he ran, and he won twice. So anyway, we'll see what happens, but look, he's going to run. The question is just, when is he going to run? 2024 or 2028? Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.